If you're watching this, I need you to understand something. What you're about to hear is not a ghost story. It's not an internet rumor, and it's definitely not a coincidence. This is real. And the most terrifying part? Nobody has stopped it. Not the police, not the FBI, no one. For more than 20 years, healthy young men across the United States have vanished under almost identical circumstances. They leave a bar, stumble into the night, and disappear. Days later, their bodies are found in rivers. No trauma, no clear cause. No answers. Authorities call them accidents. But accidents don't repeat themselves in 11 states. Accidents don't leave the same symbol behind. Accidents don't mimic each other with surgical precision. A smiley face, sometimes yellow, sometimes red, sometimes barely visible, sprayed near where the bodies are found. Always mocking, always waiting. Tonight, you're going to see the full picture, something the public was never meant to understand. Because when you lay the evidence side by side, when you follow the timeline, when you truly see the pattern, there's only one conclusion left. This isn't one killer. This is a network. A group that hunts silently, efficiently, ritualistically. Stay with me. Don't look away. Because by the end of this video, you'll understand why so many believe the Smiley Face Killer isn't just real. He's still out there, and he chooses victims who never see him coming. The earliest cases seemed tragic, but unremarkable. A college student goes missing after a night out with friends. Search teams scour the area for days. Eventually, the young man is found drowned in a nearby river. Another heartbreaking accident. But then it happened again, and again, and again. In Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, New York, young men vanished as if swallowed by the night. Each disappearance followed the same strange pattern. The victim leaves a bar alone, usually after midnight, often appearing confused or disoriented. Witnesses recall them moving oddly, sometimes erratically, as if being led or pulled by an unseen force. Their phones go silent, their credit cards unused, their footprints vanish. What investigators later found chilling was the lack of struggle. There were no broken branches, no torn clothing, no defensive wounds. It was as if the victims simply stepped out of the world. Families begged for answers, police offered sympathy, not solutions. Drowning, hypothermia, alcohol. The same explanations repeated like a script. But in the shadows, a few detectives began noticing something everyone else had overlooked. Many victims had been missing far too long to match the condition of their bodies. Some were gone for a week, but showed almost no decomposition, suggesting they were kept somewhere cold, somewhere controlled, before being placed into the water. It was the first clue, horrifying, impossible to ignore, that something far darker was happening. When the bodies surfaced, a disturbing pattern emerged. Victims were often found in shallow water, close enough that a conscious person could have easily stood up. Others were discovered caught on branches or rocks, as if carefully placed, not naturally drifted. Autopsies revealed inconsistencies. Some victims had water in their lungs, others didn't. Some displayed faint bruising around the arms or neck, marks that could indicate restraint, but not enough for police to consider foul play. One victim was missing for 6 days, yet his body showed signs of being in the river for less than 2. Another had perfectly tied shoes, clean shoes. Despite supposedly traveling through muddy riverbanks before drowning, parents began asking questions. Why were their sons' clothes so clean? Why were phones missing but wallets untouched? Why did so many victims appear almost placed in the water instead of fallen? And then there were the timelines. Large gaps, missing hours, periods when the victims were unaccounted for. Too long to be wandering drunk, too short to be decomposing in water. Several investigators suggested an unthinkable scenario. The victims may have been abducted, held, possibly restrained or drugged, then disposed of in the water afterward to erase evidence. It was a theory law enforcement hated, because if true, it meant the rivers weren't the crime scene. They were the dump site. The first smiley face marking was dismissed as coincidence. After all, graffiti is everywhere. But then it appeared again and again, always near where the bodies were discovered, sometimes crude and childish, sometimes large, bold, and disturbing, sometimes hidden around a corner, almost like a signature left for those clever enough to find it. Detectives Gannon and Duarte documented more than a dozen smiley faces across different states, often accompanied by strange phrases, initials, arrows, or symbols. No two faces were identical, but the message felt the same. We were here. Law enforcement called the graffiti irrelevant, but probability didn't agree. The chances of random smiley faces appearing repeatedly near dozens of drowning sites across multiple states? Nearly impossible. And that inconsistency, the different art styles, led to the most chilling theory yet. The smiley faces weren't from one person. They came from multiple individuals, each with their own style, their own signature, a network, a collective. A group of predators leaving a breadcrumb trail for anyone daring enough to notice. If the theory was correct, the smiley face wasn't just a mark. It was a warning. Every victim fit the same tightly defined profile. Male, 19 to 27, athletic, college student, intelligent, well-liked, socially active, last seen intoxicated but not incapacitated. These details weren't random, they were requirements. Whoever was selecting these young men knew exactly what they were looking for. Many victims were last seen leaving bars after receiving a drink from someone they didn't know. Witnesses reported odd behavior, confusion, paranoia, disorientation, symptoms that suggested they might have been drugged. Friends often described victims suddenly walking away without explanation, as if responding to a silent command. Only they could hear toxicology reports complicated things. GHB, ketamine, and sedatives metabolize quickly, making them almost impossible to detect. After several days, investigators argued that many victims may have been drugged, but evidence had disappeared by the time bodies were found. This was not opportunistic violence. It was selection. Systematic, ritualistic. The hunters knew the type they wanted, and they found them effortlessly. The deeper investigators looked, the more it seemed the victims weren't chosen randomly, but hunted deliberately. When detectives presented the theory publicly, they expected shock, outrage, action. Instead, they were met with denial. Police departments dismissed the cases as isolated drownings. The FBI rejected the idea of a coordinated group, but investigators persisted. They mapped the deaths, revealing clusters along highways and rivers, almost like a network of routes. They studied weather, victim behavior, time of night, and distances. Patterns emerged that no one wanted to acknowledge. Some victims were found near major transportation hubs, suggesting mobility. Some cases occurred days apart in different states, impossible for one person, but easy for several. Investigators believed the killers were communicating, possibly online, maybe through dark web channels, encrypted forums, or underground networks. It sounded like a conspiracy theory, until they traced strange online activity linked to several cases. Still, authorities refused to reopen investigations. Why? Because admitting the existence of a roaming network of killers targeting young men across the country would mean acknowledging a level of danger far beyond anything the public had been told. The investigators weren't just fighting a killer. They were fighting a system unwilling to accept the truth. As public interest grew, Online communities took over where law enforcement refused to help. Redditors mapped case locations. Private detectives interviewed witnesses. Families shared patterns the police ignored. And through all this, one idea gained terrifying credibility. The killers were organized, not chaotic, not impulsive, organized. Some theories suggested a group of individuals scattered across states, connected through secretive online channels. Others believed a cult-like organization might be choosing victims based on appearance or psychological traits. A few even speculated about involvement from university groups or underground societies. But the scariest part? Cases continued. New disappearances, new bodies, new smiley faces. If it was a group, they had adapted, changing methods, switching locations, avoiding detection. If it was one person, he had mastered invisibility. Either way, the truth was undeniable. This wasn't over. The Smiley Face Killer, or killers, weren't ghosts of the past. They were predators of the present. Still hunting, still watching, still leaving that same mocking symbol behind for anyone brave enough to connect the dots. Today, the Smiley Face Killer case remains unsolved. Police still label the deaths accidental. The FBI still denies a pattern. Officially, the story ends with a shrug, but the disappearances haven't stopped. The bodies haven't stopped. And the smiley faces, those twisted, laughing symbols, still appear. The final truth is the one you won't hear from authorities. No one knows who's doing this. No one knows how many there are. No one knows when they'll strike again. But one thing is certain. The victims all look the same. And one day, someone else will leave a bar late at night, step into the darkness, and never return. And somewhere nearby, maybe on a wall, maybe under a bridge, maybe hidden behind a dumpster, a smiley face will be waiting, watching, mocking, promising that the hunt isn't over. Because the Smiley Face Killer isn't a legend. He's a shadow, a network, a predator without a name. And he might be closer than anyone realizes.